Good evening, listeners, brave navigators of the enigmatic and the concealed. Have you ever felt the pull of the unanswered, the allure of the mysteries that shroud our existence? For more than a decade, a unique comic publisher has dared to dive into these mysteries, unafraid of the secrets they might uncover. This audacious entity is Paranoid American. Welcome to the mystifying universe of the Paranoid American podcast.
Launched in the year 2012, Paranoid American has been on a mission to decipher the encrypted secrets of our world. From the unnerving enigma of MK Ultra mind control to the clandestine assemblies of secret societies. From the awe-inspiring frontiers of forbidden technology to the arcane patterns of occult symbols in our very own pop culture. They have committed to unveiling the concealed realities that lie just beneath the surface. Join us as we navigate these intricate landscapes, decoding the hidden scripts of our society and challenging the accepted perceptions of reality.
Folks, I've got a big problem on my hands. There's a company called Paranoid American making all these funny memes and comics. Now, I'm a fair guy. I believe in free speech as long as it doesn't cross the line. And if these AI-generated memes dare to make fun of me, they're crossing the line.
This is your expedition into the realm of the extraordinary, the secret, the shrouded. Come with us as we sift through the world's grand mysteries, question the standardized narratives, and brave the cryptic labyrinth of the concealed truth. So strap yourselves in, broaden your horizons, and steel yourselves for a voyage into the enigmatic heart of the Paranoid American podcast, where each story, every image, every revelation brings us one step closer to the elusive truth.
Hey, it's me, your favorite Paranoid American. I'll put myself big for a second just because I have to lead this off with a shout out to Sam Tripoli and Chaos Twins, the new comic. It basically is going to be finally signed and released. Sam's coming to Florida on the 30th. He's going to sign a whole bunch of these. I'm going to start shipping them out in the first week of April, which is also probably when you're watching this right now. So if you're out there, also check out the album that we just collaborated on, The Tinfoil Trap. And it's got a whole bunch of different artists, including a whole bunch that you've seen on this show already. All original music by completely independent artists, tinfoiltrap.com. And today we've got a special guest. This is Shane Cashman, who's an incredibly amazing writer. I've actually got a little blurb here because he's got such a list of credentials. Let me just throw out while he awkwardly sits there and watches me just like praise him. So he is a best-selling author. He's got 3 books you can find out right now. One's called The Joyless Kingdom, which is a collection of poems and prose written under, quote, duress during the 2020 lockdown. There's another one called A Fucking Lunatic, and the reviews on the back, it looked like that said, criminally wrong, an idiot and a traitor, a real disappointment, and should be droned to death. Which are glowing. Those are the similar kind of reviews that you guys see me pull up on my comics. So I feel like we're going to bond over that. He's got another book called Tales from Inverted World, Close Contact with Ghosts, UFOs, Serial Killers, and Simulation Theory. So you've already got like a warm chair waiting for you. And then finally, well, not even finally, but he's staff writer for a Timcast. He's profiled Alex Jones, Kanye West, Riff Raff, Carrie Lake. He's been on the Bret Easton Ellis podcast. He's written for The Atlantic, BBC Travel, Penthouse, Vice. Like, I could just keep going on and on and on. But I want to say the crowning achievement is that he also attended SUNY Orange, which is right down the street from SUNY Oneonta that I didn't go to, but I grew up there. And I actually feel like maybe we can bond over upstate New York a little bit. So there's your intro, Shane.
Sick.
Welcome aboard. Let me know how you're doing, man. And tell people where to find you up front too.
Yeah, well, first of all, thanks for that. That's crazy. It's funny hearing some of those names at the end, like BBC and Vice, because I detest those places now after so long. You know, a long time ago, I was like, oh, so the only place I want to write is Vice or The Atlantic, and now it's a scourge in my bio. But I appreciate that. You can find me at Shane Cashman on all of the platforms. Also, shout out to Sam Tripoli. I love him. He's one of my favorite people. So I'm stoked to see the comic book and all the love that Tripoli deserves. And then for SUNY Orange, so is there another SUNY Orange? Because I actually didn't go there. I taught there, but the SUNY Orange I taught at was in the Hudson Valley, which I think is more south of Oneonta.
Right. There's actually, if you look at a map of all the SUNYs in Florida, there's like, or sorry, in New York, there's like 20 or 30 of them. I actually always had thought it was just the SUNY that I knew, but now there's like 20 of them, man.
I went to SUNY Purchase, which was for my bachelor's, which is like another mistake of like you're going to college in general. It was an art school. And I went there and it was an experience. That's where I first experienced like the seeds of what would become a lot of the like leftist degenerate behavior, but before we had any like clear way of defining it. And so I still wanted to be a professor. That was my goal in life, was to teach writing and poetry and fiction and journalism. So I went to, a master's program, which was another mistake of debt. And I taught for like 10 years. And I taught at SUNY Orange, is one of the colleges I taught at. And that was a community college, which was actually a lot better, in my opinion, than teaching at like a private school, because the other school I taught at was a private, quote unquote, Catholic school, but it was also, all of the depravity had entered into the front door and turned that college, all colleges upside down. But colleges were crazy. And I wish I'd ever went, honestly, but a part of me is like, I'm glad I did, just so I could see how crazy it was on the inside. Because I think we see a lot of like caricatures or in memes, like things that are posted online, like that can't be real. But no, it legit is real. I saw it as a professor every day at these colleges.
That's the whole reason that I even mentioned SUNY Oneonta too, is because when I grew up, my mom was a teacher and followed that exact path that you sort of just described. And I guess if I had followed in her footsteps, it would have been pretty much like through those little footprints that you just kind of went through, right? Although I didn't, because by the time I was out of school, I hated it. I hated teachers. And I got to ask, you've written for the BBC. You've worked at, private Catholic colleges. Can you convince me you're not in the Illuminati?
Yeah. Imagine my Freemason trophy will now descend from the ceiling. It's, what makes it even worse is I grew up on a military base. So people hear that, they're like, this guy is really something. Who knows? They might be operating something. I grew up at the bottom of a landfill, and I used to tell my parents that there was some like secret entities inside the landfill experimenting on us. So maybe that's part of the Illuminati.
I mean, when I was in the military, my base sort of barracks were also built on a landfill. In fact, lots of military bases and the housing around them is typically built on what used to be huge landfills, because it's cheap.
I honestly, like, I was joking about saying that to my parents. Well, I was half joking, because I really do believe there's something to putting people at the bottom of a landfill. Like it's kind of like a bizarre, almost ritualistic, symbolic thing to be like, here, we supposedly love these soldiers on these military bases, but we're going to stick them on this mountain of trash. And that's like the light. It's very dystopian, but that's how I grew up. We were civilian. I wasn't in the military. My parents weren't military. They taught like horse riding, equestrian and stuff. But I was on the fringes of that weird military society, and just being on the outside, looking in constantly, being like, all this is very bizarre. Everything was very weird. So yeah, there's something operating in those bases. And I think they put people either on landfills or sometimes on old cemeteries for bizarre reasons. Not just because it's cheap, maybe.
So I got to ask you, as someone that actually went into education and had the goal of like being a teacher and then left, this is like a very frank question that's going to sound like a complete, ignoramus, because that's what I am. But this is just like the most blunt question. I've never gotten a straight answer, and I feel like I could get it from you.
Okay, I'll try.
If you want to become a teacher and you're smart and you understand academics and the whole system, does no one look into how much it pays before they join? Because it seems like every teacher joins and then immediately starts complaining about the pay, which it's like, no shit kind of.
Yeah. No. So I knew going in, the pay was going to be bad because I was going to be an adjunct, which is what 70% of teaching jobs are in this country. An adjunct is an atrocity. We'll get into that in a minute. So knowing that, I was like, what I kept telling myself for years is, this is my foot in the door. I'll eventually get that real teaching job. I'll get tenure. I'll get a real salary. Because as an adjunct, you get maybe $2,000 per class. You're only allowed to teach a certain amount of classes per semester, depending on the college. For me, it was 2 or 3 classes a semester, depending on the school. So there was certain years I was making literally like between $12,000 to $16,000 between a few colleges a year. So on top of that, I was also a furniture mover full-time at an auction gallery, which was basically supplementing most of my salary for the year. And then on top of those 2 jobs, I was also freelancing at those places like the BBC and the Atlantic, which also don't pay very well. So I think a lot of people, including students, don't realize how many adjuncts make up a college. And so not only do you not get paid well, but you're also basically working full-time, because full-time professors are pretty much doing the same workload. You don't have health insurance. You don't have an office, although you're supposed to have office hours. But most of us, well, at least I can speak for myself, I believe that if I was there long enough and if I did well, I'd get that position, which never came through at all. And so my problem at the very end of my years of as being a teacher was COVID. And I was like, why am I putting up with all of this bullshit, thinking I'm going to get this job? First of all, the institutions are trash. I'm surrounded by legit Marxists who hate me and they want nothing to do with me. The students every semester are getting increasingly worse by Marxism. They don't know it. They're not calling themselves Marxists. Well, some of them might be, but they're coming to class to like these classrooms where I'm thinking, this is about freedom of expression. You can say whatever you want. We can write, we can learn, we can read. But every semester there's a new problem. There's a new thing I got to like deal with. So that is happening. Then COVID's happening. And we get sent home for that first spring of 2020. And I remember at SUNY Orange, actually, was my last class in person before COVID. And the students were nervous and they were like, do you think this is going to be bad? And I was like, nah, it's going to be fine. We'll be back here in a week. And then we're shut down and then we're having classes on Zoom. And then they shut down everything. And I'm going to try to condense this for you, but just to get to like how I get to quitting teaching. When they sent us all home, and then I was in New York, everything was shut down. So I couldn't even go back to moving furniture or anything. They put us all on like unemployment. And then we go back in the fall, I'm teaching again through Zoom. I get these letters in the mail and they're like from the state. And New York State is saying, hey, you're an adjunct professor and there happens to be a law in this state that says you can't get unemployment. So you owe us that money back. So if you remember how little I was making as a professor, what I owed back from that COVID money was more than I earned as a professor. So I went to my class and said, hey guys, I really like teaching, but I'm quitting. Good luck with everything. I told them, there's a website called Universal Life Ministries. You can get a diploma for $20 there. And you can tell people you have a PhD in some bullshit, like a doctorate and, what is it? Divinity. Do
you have a promo code for that, Shane?
I should.
You should. We should set that up for you.
That'd be amazing. And then I told them, like, do you guys know what an adjunct is? They had no idea. So I told them what I just told you about adjuncts and said, sayonara. I took the colleges to court because there was no way I could pay back that money. So I win for reasons because this is not to get too convoluted. I had to define what an adjunct is. And I had to prove that I was giving courses that were taken away from me, basically showing them a paper trail of how poorly universities treat their adjuncts, which speaks to the whole system as a whole and how horrible the whole thing is. So that was it. I didn't have to pay anything back, didn't win anything other than not paying anything. And that was that. And I had nothing lined up. And 2 weeks later, that's when I heard from Tim Pool, who I had never known personally beforehand. I just happened to apply to his job 6 months prior. So kind of like God just like dropped this opportunity on my lap after kind of just burning down all of my bridges between publishing and teaching. So it's been fun.
Yeah. How is it going for like the whatever car you were driving before? And you were showing me before we started, you've just got like your third Lambo in the driveway. That's nuts, dude. What a rise to fame here.
Yeah. You like that? It's so sweet. No, I keep joking that I'm like, we're going to go Amish pretty soon. I just want a horse and carriage. That's my goal. I'm gonna have the sickest carriage, and or maybe Mennonite, but Yeah, it's been a pretty wild turn of events the past few years. I will say that. But I feel blessed.
What kind of scenario would happen if some, let's say Trump comes in or someone else, just a random presidential candidate comes in, they win, and they just say Department of Education is no longer in existence. It's just gone. Poof. Like, is it just absolute chaos? Do people get dumber? Is like violence in the streets, or like what?
No, no one will know anything happened. It will just go on. It will just go on because
it's an egregore.
Nothing. Yeah, that's it. It's like maybe the professors will go back to going to rioting in the streets like they did for Black Lives Matter, and then they'll go away. But honestly, nothing. It'll just get better. That's what needs to happen.
What are your thoughts on, say, like home education, and with the little devil on your shoulder that's like, and I'm going to teach him that dinosaurs aren't real, and I'm going to teach him that the flat Earth is the real Earth. You know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah,
like that, like the good with the bad, right? So, is that a solution?
Yes. Yeah. Our kids are doing kind of like a mixture of home education and going out to a school, but not a public school, like so they can interact with other children their age. And right now, our kids are young, 3 and 8. So it's, we also go to church and we're talking about the Bible a lot, but I also want them to understand what it means to be skeptical of authority, which is a weird thing to dance around because I want them to respect my authority and God, but also to like not really respect a lot of things that pretend to be authority. So yeah, I haven't really gotten them into the idea of flat Earth yet, but I want them to be set up for the idea that all of this thing that a lot of people in the world might believe is the truth, whether it's how you view history, certain wars, literally anything, that anyone who thinks they know everything, you should be skeptical of. And so it's like a weird little dance that we go through. But I think homeschool is way better. I think that's how you set up your values, a foundation of values in your children, and also making sure that when they're out in the real world at a younger age, they're surrounded by people who are hopefully like-minded, but also you need to put them in situations where they'll be confronted with things that you might think are not great. I'm not saying put them in front of horrible things, but talking to some other kids that might have bad ideas, and then they have to experience that and grow an immune system of their ideas and their belief against it. Because something I did learn at college, not in the classroom, was a lot of kids who were totally sheltered at home, when they had the freedom of college, they totally went insane. Everything it was just like party nonstop and depravity. And I don't want my kids to grow up to have like a type of Rumspringa, although that seems to work in the Amish community where they go and rage and come back. But I don't want them to experience things as they grow old and be like, what is this? I never saw anything like this. I never heard anything like this. So it's that delicate dance of building a foundation, not shielding them entirely, but also respecting age. Because like I know a lot of parents who send their kids to public schools who are my eldest age, and they're already talking about things that I think are totally inappropriate, like gender and race, when they're 8 years old. I'm like, there's no reason for this kid to be thinking of these things. So you just have to constantly dance back and forth with that. And, right now I'm just teaching my kids about, we read a lot of the Bible and we read a lot of ancient Greek literature. So my kid goes out and plays and he thinks he's like defeating Hydra and the Cyclops, and he's like Odysseus. And it's a lot of fun.
What's your Santa Claus policy?
We don't. No Santa Claus. I don't, because I think that takes away from the overall idea of God. Honestly, I think it's like a fairy tale, like the Tooth Fairy. So we very early on told our son there's no Santa Claus, which some people would be like, well, that's joyless. But I think that believing in certain things like that are kind of detrimental in my mind. So that's how we go. And but we've also told him, like, we can't ruin that for other kids. We try not to like put down other kids. So another one of those things where we're always tap dancing around, but it was important for me to not go into that charade.
That would be so, because I grew up believing in Santa Claus until, I don't know, 8 or something, like right around like your elder, which from what I hear is maybe a little late in the game, but no, that's fine. So. That's fine with me.
I don't think so. I think it's good though. And it's not like we're like anti-Santa and there's like images of Santa, but it's just, it's funny because I grew up, I was atheist for most of my life. And so
did you grow
now
up believing in Santa?
No. I had a weird group. Like my mom is Jewish and my dad is Catholic, but neither of them give a shit about religion. But there was no Santa, nothing like that. So I never did. My wife is Christian, always been Christian. She never believed in Santa. That's what her mom did. And I kind of like that, talking to her about it. But in the past few years, I've been really like into going to church and like becoming a Christian after all these years of being militantly atheist. And I was just, to me, it made sense to have the focus on the things that you believe are real and not these things that are like Hallmark traditions, like the Easter Bunny and Santa.
Out of the 45,000 denominations, which one did you find to be your favorite flavor?
I don't even know. I don't have a denomination. I go to an old church that looks like it was built by some men who came back from the Civil War. It's not Baptist. There's not like a thing outside. It's just a Christian church. And it's just a guy, our pastor's a guy who like has a farm down the road. And we just walk in on Sunday mornings and read the Bible, and that's it. We've gone to Baptist church and we've gone to some other, I can't even remember what that was. I don't want to say Lutheran. And none of it like appealed to me at all. And some of it was, we were like shopping for churches early on when I started to care. And there was like, oh, this one's too retail. It's like I was sitting in a Target and it was like a QR code and some dude in tight jeans, sing with an acoustic guitar. I'm like, that's not it. And then some other ones, I was just like,
shots fired to whoever that guy is.
Yeah. Screw that guy. No. But like I found this one and I just felt at home and comfortable, and it's just very simple. So whatever this is, it's a very simplistic little house with just a Bible. It's funny. I've been thinking about what denomination this is, and I probably should ask, but I don't think it's like a Baptist or Protestant. It's just,
we call ourselves the Luciferian branch, Shane.
Imagine if they're like, yeah, this is Scientology, and tomorrow Tom Cruise shows up like, oh my God, well, you guys
hold on to these cans real quick. Hold on.
That's amazing.
So it's like peas. They're kind of hidden. And I wonder too, like, why didn't you go Jew or Catholic? Like honestly, those were like the top two if you had to pick, right?
I know. Well, the Jewish thing was something we did early on, but like I only went there because they had MTV in the library and I didn't have TV at home. So the only way for me to watch TRL with Marilyn Manson was going to that synagogue and eating their bagels. And then I lost that. That was it for me. And my dad never did the Catholic thing other than if we went to a funeral for one of his family members because he's the youngest of 9. So I already knew those weren't it. And there was something about both of those that just seemed too dark for me. And like with the Jewish thing, like what I knew of that was I felt when I thought about that religion, it was stuck in like a doom cycle. Like every holiday is like, okay, we survived this, we survived that. And it's just like there was literally no hope. People in that religion might think they have hope or feel that way, but I did not feel that way at all. And then when I started reading the New Testament for the first time, it was the first time I really felt any type of hope. And then that's when I started shopping around for different churches. And then the churches, like the ones I was telling you about, were making me feel further from that feeling of hope, which is why I connected with this one that we're at now, because it's just like we just read the Bible. And that's all I really want to hear is like I want my kids to see their parents taking it seriously. And I just want to hear the Bible. And that's it. And it's simple. There's a lot of the stuff that's like that is traditional is not a good word for it because I like tradition, but there's something to like maybe a cultish with those two larger religions. It took me off. It was off my radar after that.
Have you ever dabbled in Scientology or Mormonism?
Not Mormonism. I did walk by the Church of Scientology once when I was in LA, and that was about as close as I made to that.
Just walking by?
Just walking by. But I do have a weird connection to that church. This is weird. And this is going to connect to me being part of the Illuminati question from earlier.
We already know because you didn't give a great answer for that one.
I know. Well, here, this is my answer. My grandfather's brother came back from World War II, like all messed up. And they went back to Brooklyn where they were from. And he took off and went out west and was like homeless. And he made friends with a guy on the street who said, you can live in my basement if you help me hand out pamphlets. And that person turned out to be L. Ron Hubbard. And he helped start Scientology, whatever year that was. So when I saw that movie that Paul Thomas Anderson made,
The Master?
yes, that is, I don't know how, that is legit very, very close to my grandfather's brother's story, because same time frame, even the motorcycle that he was riding and Joaquin Phoenix was driving, like that was what my grandfather and his brother were into. So yeah, maybe that's where it started for me, honestly, because I don't know.
When did you realize you were the Moonchild, the Alistair Crowley Moonchild that was created by L. Ron and Jack Parsons in the desert?
Right now, live with you.
What about any thoughts on Catholicism? Was there anything in particular that turned you away from just like straight up drinking blood?
No, I just it didn't appeal to me. I have a lot of friends who are Catholic, and they are very pushy with their Catholicism. And
how so? Is it just like come to church, come to church?
It's beyond that. It's like become a Catholic. You know, something I thought was funny with a few of my Catholic friends was I think some of them would have preferred me and my atheism than to me being this like vague Christian, because I wasn't taking that extra step in their minds to be a Catholic, right? So when I told them like, yo, I'm getting baptized in a river, because like I like the Civil War era, like we're in a war, we're getting baptized in a river type situation. They were like, oh, okay. I'm like, oh, word, that's weird. I thought they'd be more stoked on that. But it dawned on me that some of them, for some of them, it was like, you should be not that. Because some of the Catholics I've talked to, they would consider anything less than their church as heretical. So like I'm a heretic in their eyes. So well, I mean, that's that.
Like, I guess one analogy, maybe a bad one, but it would be like if you brought your friend to the firing range and he kept getting excited because he hit the paper as opposed to hitting the bullseye. So like the Catholic friends are like, that's cute. Like you're on the paper, but you're a little too excited before you hit the bullseye. Right.
And they keep going like, well, it's a step in the right direction. I'm like, I feel amazing. Like, all right. But you know, it is what it is. But it does, other than that, it was just growing up with like my dad's, like, he didn't care for it at all. And then only seeing it through funerals, it was just like, yeah, it had no appeal to me whatsoever. So yeah, who knows? But that's all it is.
During your atheist phase, did you believe in the supernatural in any form?
Yeah, probably not as much as I do now, honestly. Because I think me having gone down the paranormal like rabbit hole so deeply probably opened me up to me being more religious. But I did grow up, like I said, outside of that military base at the bottom of a landfill in a very old house built in like the mid 1700s. And we just grew up very nonchalant, being like, oh, there's ghosts in this house. So that's like my earliest memories of my parents just being like, yeah, there's a bunch of ghosts in this house. So it was just part of life, you know, and watching Unsolved Mysteries. So that was always there, but never like something I was freaked out about, just because the way we were raised. Like we had a boy who died in our house in 1979. That's like 6 years before we lived there. And we found that out later on. But when we did, my parents would just start addressing the ghost by his first name. Like his name's Jimmy. And so Jimmy was like this weird, like adopted ghost brother that we had in my house. And my parents probably still talk to him, to be honest. But it was a very weird, tragic story. I actually wrote about it in that one Inverted World book, because I was very curious if it was even a real story. And I discovered it was, and all this other, you know, they kind of hid the story. He was murdered by his brother and all this stuff. But yeah, so I grew up thinking there's something else happening in this world. Also, when you grow up in the middle of the woods with no neighbors, you're kind of, I feel like for me at least, I was prone to like believing in like weird shit, like ghosts and werewolves and whatnot. But also, you know, I was obsessed with reading like Goosebumps, which probably infected my brain.
Well, the liberal aspect of it, probably.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, man, I think we're putting more tally marks on the Shane is in the Illuminati than in the not in Illuminati. Because if you lived in a house that you said was built in the mid 1700s, right?
I know. Yeah.
Then that probably existed on May 1st when the Illuminati was founded in 1776. So you've got a house that existed during the founding and downfall of the Illuminati.
I actually, now I'm thinking maybe the founding could have happened in that house, to be honest. Like,
well, we should take you're saying the quiet part out loud right now.
Yeah. No, I think that's very possible. When you see it, it's also, in terms of Illuminati, it's also weird because people always said, "Oh, that house that you grew up in, that's where George Washington once stayed." So there's also that. But then I will also say, everyone in New York who has a old house says George Washington spent the night in their house. That is, but yeah, no, it is a really old house.
He slept around a lot, apparently.
Oh, and this will, yeah, well, for sure. And this will make it even worse. It was J.P. Morgan's old estate where I grew up. And when he died, his daughter took it over, and she fucked up. She killed all the cows by accident, which now that I'm saying out loud, sounds like some horrible ritual sacrifice. And then she sold it to the military academy, and then fast forward 100 years or so, and little old Shane walks in, part of this larger ritual that we're now discovering.
Yeah, so you basically live on JP Morgan's old land, in which there was a sacrifice, a bull sacrifice, which I guess is one of the oldest agricultural forms of, blood ritual.
They were all red cows.
So do you believe in ghosts now?
Yeah, I don't. It's funny. It's like now it's like my definitions of things have shifted. I don't know if I'd even call them ghosts. Like the way I used to think of aliens, I think of demons now. So there's things that are out there, and I've kind of shifted the prism through which I viewed them. But there is there. So yeah, I don't. With ghosts, that could be any number of things, from demons to some type of thinning of the veil between this life and the afterlife. I've had weird experiences with like the dead or who knows what they are. And I've always felt that way because of growing up in that old house in the middle of nowhere. But it wasn't until I was 30, probably, and I'm 38 now, that I had like an experience. I was at my grandma's house after my grandfather died. This is in Florida. And I remember, so my grandfather just died. I'm there just with my grandma, kind of making sure she's all right. I'm about to leave that day to go back home. And it's before the sunrise. I couldn't sleep. And I'm sitting in her living room. And all of a sudden the ceiling fan turns on. I hear the button like make a sound like it's been turned on. So I'm like, what the hell is that? And I'm watching the ceiling fan go from fast to slow to medium, like through all the things. And I just instantly was like, I think my grandfather's talking to me. So like I've developed that theory. That's not my theory, but it's obviously been around, of like, there is something that happens in electricity where like maybe something from another realm can communicate. And I felt like I was communicating with what I would like to think was my grandfather, but who fucking knows, honestly, at this point. And then after that, I was just, I think there's definitely weird things. Having grown up at the military base, surrounded by revolutionary battlefields, having been to Civil War battlefields, I do think there is some type of like trauma that blood spilt from battles can induce on a place. I don't know if it's the ghosts or hauntings that we think of when it comes to like, if we think of like Hollywood, but there is something for sure. But I'm always thinking of that while also balancing the idea that I could just be projecting my own knowledge of those battles onto these places, So that's kind of like going back and forth the whole time.
I don't know if this is even accurate, but it's an interesting thought experiment. But I've read a few articles that suggested that a lot of the old ancient battlegrounds actually took place on these huge agricultural pastures, so that whoever won was literally going to be planting crops in the same place that everyone died. And then some theories that the iron in the blood and all the other nutrients just from the blood, in fact, made the soil fertile. So like the sacrifices and the big wars and everything, they had a very practical purpose that might have been assigned like a spiritual one.
I totally believe that. I visit Antietam battlefield, and that's like one of the bloodiest battles of the Civil War. And there is something there, just like, I mean, a lot of people died there. And you think about what that does, all that blood spilt into that ground. It does seem like there's something more to it than just we're having a battle here. That makes me think of, having lived in New York City for a while, a lot of those parks in New York City used to be cemeteries. So now you got people sunbathing and drinking Starbucks on top of dead people. Kind
of like a landfill.
So it is like a landfill. Exactly. And then in West Point, where I grew up at that military base, I remember being friends with a lot of the guys who would, like the facilities guys, they'd fix the wall in the cemetery, and they, by accident one day, maybe by accident, they were digging by the wall, and one of the caskets nearby went up through the ground, and it was belonged to a woman named Margaret Corbin, who was like a quote unquote revolutionary hero. What happened was they opened the casket. West Point was like, well, we should observe the bones now before putting her back. And they were like, this isn't Margaret Corbin at all. This isn't even a woman. This isn't even from the same time period that Margaret Corbin's from. They were like, this is a man from 1800 something, and she's supposed to be from 17. She died in like 1790 or something. So talking through all them and these guys, they were like, dude, we've done so many things on this property where we've been digging and then there's just bones. And we're like, what do we do? And they're just like, West Point just takes the bones. Their parade field, what they call Trophy Point, was where it was like a mass grave for the British during the Revolution. So there's so many graveyards that people just don't know about. And I do think that has an effect on people as much as putting like lead in water and dropping aluminum out of the sky.
How much do you think they'll be worth if we dug up some British bones? Like, is that something that you could sell to museums and eBay?
Oh yeah. Yeah. You could sell it to the Illuminati to sniff, I'm sure. You could sell it.
Well, they need like Geronimo bones. They don't want just some random British bones. Yeah, bro.
That's right. Cause that's their ancestors. They're like, no, we can't fucking sniff our own guys. Yeah, dude, that was the other thing. Learning about those graves in that cemetery, how fucking crazy it is to think about Custer dying at the last stand, him being torn to shreds by the Indians. They're sticking arrows in his dick, and they're just like coyotes tearing him apart. And then West Point's like, well, I guess we got to go bring back Custer, even though there's nothing left. And he's in the same cemetery that missing woman was in. And I always thought this was hilarious. They put him in a tomb that's completely decorated with like Indian stuff. So there's like buffalo heads and arrows. I'm like, damn, I don't think they like Custer at all. They did him dirty. But yeah, I think it's bizarre. I think it's very bizarre. And I would like to dig up a lot of those bones, to be honest. I have, before I left West Point, I took a horse bone with me, just as a little artifact. And I hang it over my front door. So if that
doesn't sound very Christian. That sounds a little pagan.
You know what? When you grow up with horses, it's a part of it. It's a part of life. It's a horse femur too. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
like
I didn't get to grow up
like
that
blood.
part.
It's like the blood over the door for the, you got to save the firstborn.
But it's just like a horse mandible instead.
I would love a horse mandible. I have a femur, which is more like a weapon, honestly. It's like if you can't get to the shotgun fast enough, this thing will crush somebody's skull because it's like, it's like this big. It's beautiful.
So when did you, like when 9/11 happened, what was your first thought? And how long did it take you to come around that it was an inside job?
Oh God, too long. I was probably in 9th or 10th grade when it happened. And I remember just feeling fear. And totally believing the whole narrative, which is
how
funny.
far away were you? Were you in the state of New York when it happened?
Yeah. It was like under an hour away. So all of our friends, not all, a lot of my friends' parents were there. And since we were at a military base, they were telling us like, they're going to get you next. I'm like, shit. And we also directly across the river is a power plant. And they were like, if they don't bomb us, they're going to bomb that. And so like the next week, we all had iodine pills with our names on it at the principal's office. So I was a complete victim of the fear porn. And I remember being like all in on like Bush. I was like, he's a good leader, which is, I was going to say, that's funny because 2 years prior, I had already had my first real interaction with complete distrust in the media because I was a fan of Marilyn Manson. Columbine happened. I saw them construct a whole caricature out of Marilyn Manson that as a fan, I was like, that's not the case at all. But it had no effect on the way I was then going to perceive 9/11. It took me years, like after college to even like consider it. as a thing. And now I'm like, obviously I wish that happened sooner, but yeah, it took me a long time. I'm trying to think of what it was that even changed my mind. I don't know. It might have been Tripoli, honestly. But not like I was a manager of a tattoo shop for a few years when I was putting myself through grad school, and my buddy who owned it was obsessed with Sam Tripoli. I didn't even know who Tripoli was, but we'd always listen to him while everyone's tattooing. And I was like, oh yeah, there's a whole other world of information out here that I've been completely neglecting. And so I guess that was probably my diving board into all the strange, all the real strange.
At that point, like before that happened, before you started kind of like diving into the strange aspect, what did you think about, say, like the JFK assassination? Or did you just not?
No, I think I just intuitively was like, that he was killed by the authorities, but I didn't go on to like I didn't have any real theories. But I remember I was a singer in a death metal band for a long time, and one of our first songs was called The Magic Bullet Theory. So like I had some idea of like this narrative is not the narrative, but that's where it ended. Just like it was more like the History Channel's version of flirting with a conspiracy about JFK than like going into it. That stuff all happened. Me getting more into the JFK stuff happened probably, I don't even know if that was before or after the 9/11 stuff. Probably after the 9/11 stuff. But the JFK thing opened up for me when I was learning about Operation Northwoods, because I didn't know anything about Northwoods. And it was Northwoods and it was Tuskegee. That were two things when I really started to read about. I'm like, oh fuck, they're really fucking evil. And like, it was confirming a lot of the biases I thought I had about authorities, but like I couldn't put into words. And then when I'm reading about those things, it was very easy then for me to then package that up and tell it to people and then show them things. And then, in my mind, I connect JFK's assassination to like Northwoods and what he was up against with the Joint Chiefs of Staff and all that stuff. So those things probably really opened me up to full on skepticism of the reality that we've been given my whole life is completely false, and starting to like pull the curtain back on all that shit.
Do you think there was just one Lee Harvey Oswald?
I think there was a whole system of things. With Lee Harvey Oswald, I don't think he operated alone. If he even operated at all, that's the only thing with all this stuff is it's very hard for me to have any definitive feelings towards an idea of truth, other than me knowing that what we've been told is a lie, and that there's a lot of options, like a buffet of different ways this could have gone out. And I could easily want to believe in multiple ideas. It's like the magic bullet theory, but in terms of like reading the truth of history, like it goes all over the place. I don't really know when it comes to Lee Harvey Oswald. I don't know. The thing with him that's so funny to me, or not funny, but weird, is that, I did a profile on Alex Jones. Alex is from Texas. Obviously, JFK was killed in Texas. Lee Harvey's widow moved to Rockwall, Texas. That's where Alex Jones is from. And just like all these weird things, sync up like that. And then, we got to get more esoteric. They call it Rockwall, Texas, because they think giants built a rock wall beneath Rockwall, Texas, like the Nephilim, in my opinion. So it's just like all those very bizarre situations. And so I just don't know, but I just observe all those odd coincidences. And that's even a bad word to use it, because I don't really believe there's such a thing as coincidences. I think there's just a lot of things operating at once by various entities. And yeah, that's my conclusion. So it's not really an answer, because I don't really have an answer.
There's more synchronicity there too, because I think Bill Hicks did a show at Rockwall and he killed. So that also kind of fits into that whole like three-way triangle, right? JFK, Hicks, and Alex Jones.
Yeah, the Hicks. Did you see Alex Jones put up that video of him saying he's Bill Hicks all along?
I did see that, but I've also, a lot of people haven't seen this one, but there was a video, and I'll just make up a number. I think it was like 2006 or 2008. but Doug Stanhope went on tour and he was in Texas and he had Alex Jones open up for him before like a stand-up comedy show. And it went exactly as you might imagine it would, with a bunch of drunk people that are like, tell me a joke. And Alex Jones comes out and just starts telling everyone about the police state and 9/11 was an inside job. And Doug Stanhope comes out to like the most belligerent audience I've ever seen for a stand-up. So, I mean,
amazing.
So either Alex Jones is also, he's Bill Hicks, but he's also the best actor in the world because he can just like suppress the Bill Hicksness when he's actually on stage. It's weird, man. He would be the master man.
Alex is a wild man. He's also a part of the reason the way I view things opened up, starting probably around in high school. This is probably like junior or senior year because I watched the movie Waking Life, which he's in, and he has a really great monologue in. And I didn't know anything else about him other than like, this character is amazing. I didn't realize it was a real person until a little while later. And the other thing with Alex that I always thought was weird, well, not always, I just like within the last year after talking to him, I put this in my story, even though I was a little scared for him to read it, but it's how I felt. When he's telling me about growing up and being like, maybe not grow up, early 20s, mid 20s, he's like, I used to go and smoke weed and drop acid with some scientists in a laboratory. I'm like, that sounds like MK Ultra. I'm like, holy shit. I'm like, is Alex Jones like a bad MK Ultra that like went against the system, or is he a part of the system? Like, who fucking knows? But that was very weird. And like, he would in the story, I say it in the story, and I forget exactly the details, but he told me he'd walk into these laboratories and see like monkeys doing weird shit. He'd see people watching like weird porn. I'm like, yo, you were in like a MK Ultra chocolate factory. Like you realize that, right? Like that's
Willy Wonka's MK Ultra factory.
Yeah. Honestly, super, super bizarre.
What do you think about psychedelics in general? Do you think that was introduced by like the CIA to destroy society, or like? And I'll preface it with the interesting combination of, I guess, mescaline was sort of found in like the 1880s, I think. So, and people kind of knew about it, but it was for like, you know, the dirty people, you know what I mean? Like it wasn't for the nice aristocracy or like the well Puritans, but sometime around the 50s, it was like, oh, and by the way, here's LSD, here's magic mushrooms, here's PCP, here's everything that we've found since the 1880s through the 30s at it.
I think there's obviously an ancient purpose to a lot of these things that we could use to hallucinate and to travel to, you know, different places. Whether or not those places are good or bad might depend on the thing you take or the mindset you're in. But I do think the government probably accelerated a lot of this drug use to either suppress certain people or large groups of people, or to experiment on us. You know, who I don't really know, but I spent a good 10 years of my life on most of those drugs, whether it was mushrooms, which I did enjoy a lot. I tend to like when I don't do anything now. I'll drink, and that's about, no, that is it. Maybe have a cigarette here and there, but I used to smoke blunts and drink Robitussin and eat mushrooms and drop acid and take quercetin pills. And so I noticed that when I took the more natural stuff like shrooms, I enjoyed it. Although I'm in a constant state of paranoia for whatever reason. So anytime I do any drug, it accelerates the paranoia, even with shrooms, even with something natural. If it was Robitussin, I would drink like 2 bottles of Robitussin, and then I would literally be blind. And
for the kids, that's called a robo tripping.
That is robo tripping. Do not try that at home. I have a bunch of friends who have ulcers from that now. I'm sure I have a hole in my brain from all that tussin. But I do think that a lot of that drug use and normalizing drug use did spill over into big pharma culture and people being addicted to pills, like painkillers, which are huge. I had a huge problem with painkillers. I had broken my knee with my band I was telling you about. And that was the beginning of like a few years of a really bad struggle with oxys and Percocets. And it was horrible. And I think we are an entire country that is on these painkillers. And it's a very, very bad thing. So I'm not saying all drugs are bad, and if people want to do drugs, that's fine. Like, if you want to do more like, acid or shrooms. But today, I just think, and maybe this is a culmination of the government promoting this throughout subcultures. So it would like culminate into where we're at now, where I wouldn't feel safe taking any drugs right now, knowing that anything could be laced with fentanyl and like it could kill you quickly. Like I keep thinking about this, and it's funny, people kind of forget Prince was killed with fentanyl. They slipped him up what he thought was a painkiller, but it was fentanyl, and that was it. So it's like no matter who you are, you're not safe. And I grew up in a small town where there was a lot of drugs, and it's obviously not just small towns. This happens everywhere, and there was a lot of overdoses. And we knew it was dangerous, and we took these risks, knowing what could happen, but we didn't have this like overall fear of like, wow, this could be laced with something really bad, maybe baking soda, or something like they cut whatever you're sniffing with, or painkillers. But nowadays it's gotten so bad. Yeah, it's really, really, really bad.
Yeah, just vitamin B3. What's going to be?
Yeah. No, it's just
a little baby laxative.
It's just it's just gonna make you stronger. It's totally fine. But,
it makes you regular.
Yeah, but then that's what we need. Is and then I think about promoting drug use through subcultures. I think about I think the book is called Weird Seeds from Laurel Canyon. Have you read that book?
I'm familiar with it. I haven't dove into it, but it's essentially psychedelic CIA serial killers.
Yeah. And like the CIA, according to the book, and this kind of like lines up with a lot of what Tom O'Neill wrote in Chaos with Charles Manson. They saw a subculture emerge that was anti-war, but at the beginning it was, suit and tie, buzz cut dudes being like, okay, war is bad. And they subverted that with the counterculture, with the acid, with the shrooms, with rock and roll. And you can look at what this book focuses on, what happened in Laurel Canyon and all the weird connections within those bands to the CIA and the military industrial complex, like Jim Morrison. Well, I'm sure people know that one, and his dad being involved with Gulf of Tonkin. But that's just like one of many weird synchronicities that book lays out. And, you can walk away from that book and be like, okay, it's all just weird that it lines up that way. Or, in my opinion, be like, yeah, there's definitely a darker entity at play here. And we should be taking notice of it and also be wary of the things that we ingest, whether drugs, food, drink, or music, honestly.
What do you think about the Eucharist was originally a mushroom?
I had never heard that one.
You never heard this?
Oh, I have. I saw that. I think I saw
Sacred Mushroom in the Cross, yeah. John Allegro. There's a whole bunch of them.
I saw a clip of Rogan talking about it a while back, but
dude, what? I mean, I have to push you. I have to push you into this angle because not only about the Eucharist being like the original mushroom, if you imagine like the undercap, maybe Amanita, probably not like a purple ringer or something, right. But also the concept of the Holy Grail holding this like magical blood. Because when you see an Amanita dried out in the sun after it's rained, it turns upright, and that red pigment on the top, it seeps into the water, and when it seeps in, it turns the rest of it gold. It literally looks like a golden chalice filled with blood. And if you were to drink that and eat it, you're tripping, I guess. And that's also where Santa comes from, why Santa looks like a mushroom. And you've probably heard the whole yurt thing. And that's why the Pope wears the red little gown that looks like a freaking gill under him, like the little veil.
Yeah. That's other things that have put me off to the Catholic Church. It's funny, I didn't even say the Vatican. That was the number one thing to be like, I don't trust the Vatican at all. So yeah, I hadn't really explored those, but I think I should because it goes back to what I was saying earlier of my skepticism of everything, and to some degree, it goes to even not just the Catholic Church, but churches in general. I grew up reading a lot of Flannery O'Connor, and she's one of my favorite writers. She considers herself a Catholic, or she considered herself a Catholic.
With a name like that, you kind of have to.
Yeah. But the thing she always wrote about was it's okay to question your faith, because that makes you like more of a believer instead of being like some brain dead idiot who just follows along and does what you're told. And I guess that was an early inspiration to my skepticism. which is, I guess, good or bad. I think it's a good thing to be skeptical. But she was, yeah, for those listening who are interested in her, she's amazing because she wrote like incredibly violent stories about like the people being murdered. And she's just like this little lady. She died very young and had a peacock farm, but wrote these ridiculous short stories about horrible violence, but constantly making sure people knew in every story, like, faith is good, but question everything, especially those who claim to be the authority in it.
There's so many different angles I want to be able to pull this into, but I also want to get to some of the interesting topics that you've like written about, and I'm kind of curious in. So like you've done profiles on not just Alex Jones, but you've also done some on like Riff Raff and Kanye West, and based on your social media posts, it sounds like you've been working on a project about Kanye West. Can you talk about that at all?
Yeah. So this will go out. My first chapter I'm probably going to publish it the second we finish the recording. So it's called Kanye West is Dead. And it's something I started writing October 23rd, 2012 or 20. Yeah. You have to look up whatever day the song Monster came out. And there's a line in that song that inspired a lot of what the second I heard that song in Kanye's verse, I was like, I saw this whole concept for a story. And, I've been a fan of his since I was in college. That was maybe one of the only few good things that came out of college was I had to, in order to be at that college, we were so poor. I had to get like this weird job to like supplement me being there, which is a facilities job where I changed mattresses for other students or changed out broken lamps, fixed windows. And it was me and like 8 black dudes from the basketball team. And we had a giant truck. And at that point, I did not know who Kanye was, but they did. And they were like, we want to play this song in the car they put on Spaceship from College Dropout. And the second I heard that song, and having been a huge rap fan my whole life, I love rap is like my first art that I've loved before metal, before everything. Wu-Tang, KRS-One, just Outkast. They put on Spaceship, and I was like, this is fucking amazing. So that was my introduction to him. And then I just kept with him. And my appreciation for his art grew and grew and grew every album. I'm like, he's one of the few artists that I could look at that I've loved that consistently challenges me and gets better. And like, there are only a few others, and they're not even in rap. They're like a band called Daughters that started out as like a grindcore band from Rhode Island. It's like the only other thing I can look at and be like, that band also challenges me and gets better and better and better. So then by the time Monster comes out, which is maybe the first or second single for Twisted Fantasy, I'm a big time fan. And I've already gone through like a lot of phases of defending him to friends, being like, this is dope. This is awesome. Like, fuck Taylor Swift or whatever it was. So that song just triggered something in my brain. And I started outlining something that I would call Kanye West is Dead. And I don't want to give away too much yet, but it's like a long, sprawling book that at some point, whenever that song came out, I think it's 2012, I still was believing in the colleges. I was still believing in the publishing world. And I was like, I'm going to publish this through a publisher, but there is like no way that would ever happen. And
especially not now.
And oddly enough, you brought up Bill Hicks, and he actually makes a little, he shows up in the first chapter, which is so bizarre that you said that. But what seemed exciting to me was then having come to the realization I don't want to put it out through a publisher, nor would it happen, because like they're not going to deal with me after everything I've said or written on different shows or whatever. I'm going to put it out. I'm going to serialize it on Twitter. I think it's going to be once every 2 weeks. I'm not really sure yet, but something like that, because I want to give time for people to read each section without inundating people with stuff, because there's just so much shit. So I'm going to put it out over a period of time and then make a physical copy at the end, which should be interesting. So I'm excited for the process. And then the other thing on top of that that's weird is like, I met Kanye December. Well, I met him. Yeah, I think December.
Illuminati confirmed, basically. That's the ultimate proof.
That was like, yeah, when the heads of the Illuminati finally met, like the world felt like it was on fire. Is this even like an Illuminati image?
Oh, can you just cover your eye? Just cover your left eye.
I refuse. I will
That's fine.
not.
I'm pretty good at AI. I can CG that in right now.
Please don't cover my eye. That shit is evil. Do you follow? Oh God, Death of Freedom on Instagram?
I will now.
Favorites.
I didn't until just now. Yeah,
she's fucking great. But she gets real heavy into all that stuff. But I met him because he came for those who don't know. He came to Tim Pool's show, and that didn't go very well. He walked off of IRL, off of Tim's set. I had been there, and I intersected Kanye, and I was like, holy shit! In my head, I'm like, okay, everything I've wanted to say, I'm going to say right now. I tried getting him back into the studio. It didn't happen. But me and him hit it off. And he invited me to LA. And I spent a weekend with him in LA. And on my second day with him, it was just me and him in the studio alone. And I was just like, this is weird. And I was trying not to sound too weird or creepy. But I was like, I got to tell him. I was like, I've been writing a book. And like, you're like the protagonist in it. And we were talking about it. I had to stop him from posting pictures that would give away plot points. I was like, please don't do that. And he was cool. It was awesome. So yeah, the first chapter's loaded up in my drafts right now, ready to go. I'm excited to share that. It should be interesting. We'll see.
Is Kanye legitimately a genius in your opinion?
I think he's one of the greatest artists that's ever lived. And I despise Kanye's current arc right now. And I'm sure he's heard about it. And I think Vultures is really bad. I don't think he's giving us his best material right now. I don't have an answer for why that is. And people disagree, and that's fine. I'm probably in the minority of people who don't like it. You know, when I wrote my profile of him, I said, no matter what happens, he's going to come back and dominate. And he dominated. And he's like got the best independent release ever. It's amazing. I'm happy for him for that in that regard. And I also don't need him to put out Jesus is King or a Donda or something because I'm Christian. I need him to put out some like Christian record. It's not that. It's just I really don't think Vultures is good. I think it's pretty bad. I tried listening to it a bunch and I just can't get into it. So despite that, I still think he's like the greatest. I think there's no one who could touch him, especially in rap, but in any genre. With Vultures, I guess one of the things I don't like is that it just sounds like something anyone else could do. It's for the first time, Kanye, in my opinion, has put out something that like I could hear Future do or Playboi Carti. I'm not a Playboi Carti fan. But like you go back and listen to like Donda or 808s or Yeezus or College Dropout. Those are things that only Kanye could put out that other people can want to like replicate, but never hit the mark. So with Vultures, and that's fine. That dude has had the best run from anyone, better than the Beatles, better than Prince. I'm not saying I'm a huge fan of the Beatles, but those are like people in that stratosphere of fame that people look to as like the greatest. But I think Kanye's ascended well past those people. But I'm not giving up. I think he's got obviously more in him, and we'll see. It's funny because like I say that about him. I have never liked his fashion stuff. I would never want to wear anything he puts out. It does nothing for me. I'm stoked for him that he's into it, and I'm stoked for people that like it. So, but like, I still appreciate what he's doing with fashion or architecture, which is the architecture stuff is really interesting. It's just some of that stuff doesn't really appeal to me, but it doesn't have to. Like, I don't really care. But when it comes to the music stuff, is where I take it as a fan a little more personally because I just Vultures. I wish was better. But that's me. I don't know. Do you like Vultures at all? Are you a fan of any of that stuff?
It takes me 10 years to come around on what I actually like and I don't like, unless it's like immediately hits. And I wouldn't say Vultures immediately hit, but I gotta ask your opinion musically on this.
Yeah.
Desert Island Scenario. You've got one CD that's not scratched. You can decide which one it is, and it's either going to be Vultures, it's going to be Antichrist Superstar, or it's going to be KRS's One's spiritual album from I think like 2002. Damn. Have you even heard KRS One's Christian album?
Nope.
Okay, so
Nope.
that one's out the window already. You
That
should be
was out the
ashamed of
window.
yourself, sir.
I know. Man,
So it's up the Vultures or Antichrist Superstar Desert Island scenario.
it would be Antichrist Superstar. Totally.
Is that still compatible with your current Christian views?
Yeah,
Would you blast that?
Yeah, I still do. I still do all the time. I still like Marilyn Manson. It's funny. I've noticed myself, and this is laughable perhaps, but it's true. I've noticed myself making these kind of loopholes in logic for lyrics. Like when Trent Reznor, or no, it could be Trent Reznor, or it could be Marilyn Manson saying God is dead, kill your TV. That's Manson. In my head now, I'm interpreting that as like, kill your false idol, your small G God. That might not be what they meant, but I also don't care, because and I'm not even like trying to make myself think that. It's just like, that is exactly how I feel now. And I definitely did not feel that way when I first sang those lyrics 20 years ago. But I was saying something recently to my wife. Like, I think I learned more about Christianity through Marilyn Manson than I have through like most other people, because he was kind of like calling out a lot of hypocrisy, which is kind of like what Flannery O'Connor was doing in her stories. Obviously, he was doing a lot more differently, and a lot of it is shock value. But honestly, Antichrist Superstar is probably less offensive than Vultures. It's definitely less offensive. But Vultures is just trash. It's like artless, degenerate trash. Whereas Antichrist Superstar has a message, and not that it matters, because I don't really give a shit what artists think about their art. I think it matters to how people interpret it. But like, Manson has said a lot, like he doesn't hate God, and this is back then. I don't know where he's at now. I think he actually might have some type of religion, but back then he'd be like, I'm just challenging people's beliefs. And I always appreciated that. There's a great interview with him on TRL when Mechanical Animals came out. And there's like, your caricature of a Christian in the audience talking about God with him. And it's a really amazing back and forth about Manson saying, I'm just challenging people's beliefs, and he doesn't hate God. He doesn't, doesn't hate God, doesn't despise Christians, but he just likes people to be challenged. And, I was like, yeah, that's amazing. So I saw that. And I always wrap that up into my larger idea of like Flannery O'Connor and skepticism. And I've always been drawn to controversial figures. I mean, Christ is the highest controversial figure, but when it comes to art, for whatever reason, that's just what I've always liked. But what Kanye is doing now with Vultures just seems like stuff we've seen before. Like I said, when Vultures came out and I gave it a few spins, I was like, Kanye is just Lil Nas X now, but he pole dancing on the devil, and there's no substance or originality to Vultures. Sonically, it's incredible. Sonically, it sounds amazing. Sonically, the beats are beautiful, but lyrically, it's just a huge step backwards, in my opinion.
Are there any genres that you're like just not into at all? Like, a lot of people mention country sometimes, or like opera or classical. Or are you just like everything?
I like everything. Maybe K-pop. I haven't heard K-pop that I really like yet.
What about noisecore?
Well, who would you put in noisecore? Do you know who like Uniform is? Have you heard of that band?
I guess I'm thinking more of like Venetian Snares. I don't know if you're familiar with Venetian Snares.
No, I haven't listened to them.
Clown. I think there's one called Clowncore, where you're like two guys dress up and go around in a van and porta potties.
Oh, I appreciate Clowncore. Okay. Yeah, those guys are great. I like things.
They're the Juilliard. I found that. I think they're like Juilliard. Yes,
that's amazing. I'm sure. I that's how I would come out of Juilliard. You want to destroy everything that you learned. But I love country music. I love old country music. There's new country that I like. I love classical music. My son is very much into like film scores. So we listen to a lot of film scores, but he also likes, pop music. I like pop music. My favorite albums are like Yeezus or Donda or Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Pet Sounds is, to me, the best album ever. My wife walked down the aisle to God Only Knows. Both of my children were born to God Only Knows. So those are all very important to me. But if it's good and it hits, like to me, I love it, and that's it. I don't care about what genre or anything. It's just like if for whatever reason it resonates with me, then I love it.
That's an interesting example too, because there's a lot of rumors that Brian Wilson wasn't even in his current, he might not have been the most normal person to be in a room with, but what he was producing was next level, which seems to be a consistent sort of theme with a lot of these artists.
When I was with Kanye, I was thinking of Brian Wilson. My dad got me into the Beach Boys, so then my dad was more into the postcard Beach Boys, the Surfing USA Beach Boys, and I went down the God only knows Pet Sounds, Till I Die Beach Boys, more Brian Wilson Beach Boys. So that's when I learned a lot about him, and they screwed Brian up with his psychologist or I forget who it was, psychologist or someone drugging him, becoming a co-writer. Basically, Brian was held hostage.
It was like Weekend at Bernie's in a way, just if he was legit, just barely dead.
Legit. And leading up to that moment, Brian was in his most high creative phase, which was where in my mind was where I was comparing Kanye, because he was not only in his craziest creative phase, Donda 2, then who knows what's going on next, and the Alex Jones stuff was happening. And then go back to Brian Wilson. He created, I want to say, I forget if it was, I think it was Smile. He created Smile into his record label, and they were like, "What the fuck is this?" They're like, "This is insane." I love Smile. Smile's the craziest record. It's so beautiful. It tells the story of America, kind of. And that kind of broke him. And then he became this recluse, gained a lot of weight, got put on a lot of psychotropics, and was held hostage by his person. And there's a great movie about that. I forget the name of it, but Paul Dano's in it, and it goes back and forth in time. I forget who the other one is who plays Brian, but it's great. But when I was with Kanye, I'm like, this guy is a legit genius when it comes to music. You're watching things happening. I'm watching him make songs in the studio, watching him write songs. I watched him record a whole song, lyrics and everything that he put out a week or two later. That was then taken down. But it was amazing to see. And I was seeing those parallels in my mind. I want to say Brian also had synesthesia, or has synesthesia, where you can associate colors and sounds. But I don't really know. But yeah, it's wild. Brian, and then you want to go even deeper. The Beach Boys had those connections to Charles Manson. Then we can go back to Laurel Canyon and go back to the CIA or who knows what.
Well, we can go back to L. Ron Hubbard with your great grandpa.
That's right. That's great.
That's where it all started, likely in that basement.
It's all connected. My grandfather's brother created the Beach Boys in the basement. Putting that on my business card now.
I got a little segment that we're gonna pop into where I'll give you the rules now so we can ease into it. So I'm going to ask you a series of questions, or just make statements rather, and you're just going to give me a 1 to 10 rating. 1 meaning you don't give it any credit, 10 meaning you give it all the credit in the world. So if I say flat Earth and you're on the fence, you give a 5. If you believe in flat Earth, you give it a 10, so on and so on. But before that, I'll let you stew on that for a second, just so you're prepared for it. But I got a Civil War question that I wanted to sneak in, and I'm just curious if you've ever looked into or familiar with Albert Pike at all and his role just in America. No, I don't know Albert Pike. Tell me. Well, I want to definitely, if you're interested in Civil War, because Albert Pike was a Confederate general, I believe. But before that, he worked on behalf of a lot of Native American tribes and worked basically pro bono, defending them and acting on their behalf against the United States government. And he happened to be kind of like the patron saint of Scottish Rite Freemasonry. He wrote Morals and Dogma. He's often cited as, I just assume you're related because he's cited as being in the Illuminati. He worked with Mazzini, I believe, to bring over the Bavarian Illuminati to the States. But he's an interestingly complex, conflicting character where it's like on one hand, he's incredibly racist Confederate general, but on the other hand, he was like defending the Native Americans. And I don't know. I would love to hear your perspective if you ever look into him. Yeah, I don't know. I'd like to look him up. But
It's funny. Our view of the Confederates is so distorted. You know, the second Inverted World book I wrote, I had to do a deep dive on this town in Georgia, and then through that Richmond, Virginia, and then Jefferson Davis at the end of the war. And Jefferson Davis is such a different man when you look at him closely than I was raised to believe. Also, having been raised on a military base that gave birth to all those generals who fought in the Civil War, like Sherman, like Davis, pretty much everyone except for Lincoln, who came out of Illinois. I was told that Davis was just an evil guy, no redeeming values. That's basically how you're brought up. A lot of people are brought up, but definitely at West Point. And then you're also told that Sherman is a total hero. And then I'm like, wow, Sherman was fucking evil. He slaughtered a lot of freed slaves, and people are like, he helped free the slaves. I'm like, sure. He also had a general in the Union. This is so funny to me. General in the Union. His name was Jefferson Davis. I shit you not. Was in charge of killing hundreds of freed slaves because they didn't want them following them anymore. And then you go to Jefferson Davis, and you're like, very sad man. In many ways, a lot of grief that parallels Jefferson and Lincoln with losing a child and all that stuff. But Jefferson adopted a black child because he was getting beat in the street and had a black child with him while on the run from the Union. And when they catch Jefferson Davis, the Union takes that black child and no one knows what happened after. So who knows?
Well, I heard that they actually put him up on the top floor of the Four Seasons and happily ever after.
I thought you were going to say that was Barack Obama's like great grandson, grandfather. He's not time traveling.
And I think that was also a white dude.
True.
All right, here's my little segment. I got a nice little clip that'll bring us into it.
Hey, conspiracy buffs! I double dare you to take some PCP, the Paranormal Conspiracy Probe. On your marks, get set, and go.
Okay, 1 to 10, flat Earth.
6.
Dinosaurs, as we're told they exist. Tyrannosaurus Rex, little arms.
Dinosaurs is told to us 1.
Dragons existed, and they have to be fire breathing.
7.
Magic works.
Unfortunately, 8.
Aleister Crowley summoned demons.
9.
I could summon a demon with no experience with the top-selling Amazon book that tells me how to summon demons.
10.
If I did that, I would go to hell.
Yeah, 10.
Even if I prayed for forgiveness.
Oh, if you pray for forgiveness? Yeah, 10.
Even if you pray for forgiveness, you still go to hell?
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Heaven. I thought you said heaven. Yeah. Thanks. Go to hell still? No, 1.
What if I pray for forgiveness and like the last 10th of a nanosecond before I die? Like I have no repent, and then the second that I see them bringing the priest in for last rites, I do the quick little like Hail Mary, and I do a little like I'm sorry.
I like this. I like to say it's an 8 for forgiveness. Shout out to forgiveness.
Jesus and Mithras were the same person.
I don't even know who Mithras is.
Saying so Jesus was. Well, I guess let's say like Horus or Osiris. Same person.
1.
It's heretical to imply that.
Saying that
Jesus and Osiris are the same person.
Are you asking me if it's a 1 or a 10? If it's a heretical to say that, or are you saying
correct?
That?
Yeah, is that heretical? 1 to 10?
No, 1.
Is there anything that you could say that would out loud that would offend God enough to send you to hell?
Is there anything you can say loud enough to say?
Like if you just say, "I hate God," God, you're not real. I don't believe in you. You're an asshole. Does he take offense to any of that?
Does he take offense, or does he send you to hell?
Well, I guess it's a sliding scale, right? I mean, in my mind, there's like a certain number that if you push that number, it's like, okay, that's it, bud.
Because I do think God will extend grace to even the worst, I can't accept it as a human, but I do think horrible people can. I do think in my mind, and hopefully for God, there's a line with actions. But when it comes to saying something, I think you can say something and still be afforded grace. So I'll say 2.
1 to 10, Jeffrey Dahmer went to heaven.
3.
1 to 10, a human being has set foot on the moon in the last 100 years.
1. -3.
The moon's real.
-1.
The hollow earth exists.
4.
Angels exist.
10.
You already said that demons exist. Is that a 10 as well?
10.
Is a daemon is different than a demon?
I couldn't say. I'm not sure. So I'll say 6.
Ouija is evil.
I'll say a 7.
Tarot is evil.
I'm going to stick with 7.
And then I guess finally, you're Illuminati.
We'll say 2 because maybe there's something behind me pulling strings I'm not aware of.
That's a classic answer. And actually 2 is one of the original Illuminati numbers. That was the first number of members between Adam Weishaupt and Baron von Nige. So
I fucking should have said 33. Fuck.
Well, yeah, and I guess yeah, I'll sneak a final one in there, and I'll ask you expand on it a little bit. But Freemasons are running the world 1 to 10 in 2024.
I go back and forth with that. I'm going to say 5 because I think there's lots of entities operating, and they're possibly not working together. I think, 5.
All right, so longer format now. You're not pinned down for just numbers. I'm curious about like Freemasonry and Bohemian Grove, and I don't know any of these other like American specific secret societies. Maybe we can throw Scientology in there because they're kind of like OTO related. How much sway and power do you think that these secret societies specifically have over everything, presidential election and policy and culture?
I think a lot. Scientology definitely has a grip on entertainment, and I think there's very little like difference between politics and entertainment now. But also, I do believe, and I haven't gone down the rabbit hole a bunch with Freemasons or any like of these secret societies, but the Freemasons just have such a long history, and so many people in power have been a Mason. I've known Masons, like low-level people who've gotten out, and they were weirded out because, and this is quoting one friend, he was like, there's light and dark forces within that, and I don't want to be a part of it. And then I know other people who want to be a part of it because they think they can be in the light part. To me, being a part of it just seems too dangerous, and I don't want to be a part of any type of like cult like that. Then people could hear that and be like, well, you're a Christian. And be like, well, I think Christianity is more like a life cult and about individuality, whereas these cults have a very weird, nefarious thing to them where, I've heard defenses saying, well, as a small business owner in a small town, it's nice to have a community. I'm like, well, there's also church for that. But, you look at the way certain things are drawn out, like DC is drawn out by a Mason, and it's weird. A lot of presidents have been Masons. I don't know what the difference is between like the Odd Fellows and all those other ones that are like cousins of all these weird ones. But my band, when we were on tour, played in an Odd Fellows spot in like Vermont, and we got drunk and we found a hole in the wall and we opened it and we pulled out a casket that had a skeleton in it, but like a glass top. And I was like, that is very bizarre that they have a skeleton in their wall. Then we were so fucked up. We gave the skull beer, and then we left, and then our car exploded. Legit. Fucking insane. It was a minivan. Our minivan exploded, and our tour was canceled. And are
we talking Michael Bay explosion?
No. Like the engine, like a puff of fire, and then just smoke. So I'm being a little hyperbolic, but there was a little bit of fire and then a lot of smoke.
You're like, actually, the engine light just kind of came on, but you get the idea.
Have you ever seen people running in slow motion from a fire? It was a lot like that. No, it died. I think at that point we were in Whitehall, New York, which probably has some weird Masonic shit going on there. There's a lot of weird old Masonic places in New York, obviously where I grew up. And I didn't really know much about it or give a shit growing up, even though I worked next to a Mason lodge next to my hardware store. And I was just like, all the old men from my town go there. My mayor's a part of it. Nothing really dawned on me. But I do think there's something going on. I just don't think they're the only thing in charge. I think there's a lot of these forces working together or against each other. And I don't think I think evil's like on a really big spectrum. There's lots of different things happening. Obviously, in my mind, there's also Satan. But I think there's other like more materialistic, earthbound evil entities that you could say are Masons or other weird secret societies or Scientology that are operating, not coalescing to like do total destruction, not total war, but they're all on their own little path of total war. And it's a war on like every front. It's a war on religion. It's a war on your water supply. It's a war on entertainment. It's literally everywhere you go. Politics, obviously. So I guess that's where I fall with all that.
When Marina Abramovic does her spirit cooking parties with Jay-Z and, like Lady Gaga and all these, do you think that this is art performance? Like this is like a Marilyn Manson music video? Or do you think that they're actually doing something like magical and demonic?
I can't speak to their intentions, but I do think they are doing something demonic, whether they know it or not. She is fucking weird and her friends are weird.
She's a sponsor of this show, by the way. So just ease back a little bit.
Promo code Spirit Cooking.
Promo code Paranoid. If you go and buy the greatest walk through walls by Marina Abramovic. Actually, we'll get promo code Shane. If you do promo code Shane, you'll get 10% off. How about that?
Promo code All Seeing Eye. She's super weird. I think there's a lot of weird stuff around her. I also know it's easy to put a lot of weird narratives onto people because they're weird. But in my opinion, she's fucking weird. And the spirit cooking stuff is weird. And a lot of her performances are weird. And some of them look like humiliation rituals that she is either taking part in or a victim of. So I also know that things like that do happen. And I believe that we are a culture that no matter how modern we are, partake in human sacrifice, whether it's abortion or mutilating kids, cutting their genitals off or giving them puberty blockers.
I'll also sponsor this show, by the way.
Yeah. Margaret Sanger sponsors this show. So yeah, I don't know. Abramovich is weird and she has weird friends. I don't trust her at all.
Shane speaking for himself. You want to invite me one of your parties, Marina? Open invite to come on the show. Hopefully, the same is true for me. Does Marilyn Manson also fall into like demonic, like where his music videos demonic, or does he get a pass for artistry?
I don't know him personally. We have talked a few times. He's nice, but I don't know. He could be dark. My gut feeling is that it's more of an artist pushing the limits, but I do think that at a certain point you can cross a line, whether you know it or not. So I don't know. I do also know that he's, I think, attempting to be religious. I don't know if there's a denomination to that or what. People probably saw him at Sunday services with Kanye. That doesn't mean anything, but I don't know. I'm interested. He's got new music coming out. It'll be interesting to see what he's saying artistically, but that also might not speak to how he feels personally. But I'll check it out. And if it resonates with me, it resonates. And if I think it's fucked up and weird or demonic, I'll probably say that. But we'll see.
Hear me out. Head, KRS-One, Marilyn Manson, and Kanye get back together and do like a religious album tour.
Amazing.
Are you on board for this?
Yeah, I think we're due for a revival. I think it'd be amazing. KRS-One is amazing. Kanye, what he did with Sunday Service was amazing. But who was the first one?
I don't even remember. I'm flying by the seat of my pants here, man.
I forgot who the first one was, but I'd love to see something like that. I think it
was Head.
amazing.
Korn wasn't Head the one from Korn that left because he turned Christian?
Yeah, Brian Welch. Yeah, he's back in Korn. I still love Korn. Brian still seems to be quite religious. He left. He came back. The Korn put out an album recently, like about a year or two ago. That's, in my opinion, one of their best. And it's very interesting because it's an extremely dark record, but also has like a weird positivity to it. I love it. So I could see that happening for sure. I'd love to see it. I think there should be more of like a religious revival happening in music because we're bankrupt of it right now.
Aside from Paul, which Marilyn Manson played in Wonder Years, who was your favorite character?
From Wonder Years?
Yeah, Wayne, Kevin, the dad, the mom. Was it Winnie?
I can't remember any of those characters. I don't think I really watched the show. I didn't have a TV. I had a TV, but we had like 5 channels, and the Wonder Years was not on it.
How could you not be watching the Wonder Years? If you're a fan of Marilyn Manson, you didn't watch the TV show that he grew up in?
I know, isn't that messed up? I should go back and watch, but no, I didn't. I've seen like shows here and there, but I never watched full episodes. We got reruns of stuff later on, but by the time we got the reruns, I was like kind of not at home a lot. I was outside. What I watched growing up, nothing. I remember like whatever cartoons I was watching as a young kid were interrupted by the O.J. Simpson trial, and then I was just outside because I didn't want to watch that, and that was about it.
Would you consider yourself a Luddite?
I'm getting closer and closer. The Luddites went and destroyed shit. I'm not there yet, but and I do like it because I like that we can do this. I like that I can go serialize a book.
I was going to say, did you handcraft that shirt? Did you weave that shirt yourself? Because that's what the Luddites would have taken from you.
I know. I should. I wish I could. I think everything in moderation because I love technology. I think it's amazing. I love a lot of Western medicine, but I also reject a lot of Western medicine.
What about AI art and music?
Never. I detest it. I will never use AI art.
How would you know?
That is the problem. I wouldn't know. But I've so far where we're at now, I have a pretty good radar for it, but it will go away. And I've been asking people what they think about their favorite artists putting out AI music and if they could know or not. And it's getting hard. You know, I saw Rogan and Tony Hinchcliffe listening to a Kanye song on Rogan's show, and they were vibing to it. And I think Tony was like, "This is a good song. It's a good new song." They didn't know that was AI. I was certain it was AI just because of like the substance of the lyrics. The rehashed beat was from Power from Twisted Fantasy.
Both of those could be fixed easily.
Totally. And dude, it is not far off from me being tricked. And I know it's going to happen, but I will never use it. I think it's lazy. And I also think it's, that I know of. That's true. That's why I like writing. I'm putting those words out, unless there's something in my brain that I don't know about that's plugging in like I was born with a Neuralink. I hate the Neuralink. I prefer real people making real things. But yeah, at a certain point, we will not know. And then I talk to people about this and they'll say like, what does it matter then if you can't tell a difference? And that's a question I really don't have an answer to yet. But I do think so far where we're at now, I can tell a lack of urgency and a lack of like freshness when it comes to AI, because as it is now, AI is just like a human centipede of art that's on the internet already being condensed and then spit back out into our brains.
I mean, this is going to be something that we're going to find not just in our lifetimes, but in the next 5 years, probably. And I'm curious. I'm asking a theoretical future Shane, maybe as a thought experiment, but like a new book comes out or a new album or whatever, something comes out and you fall in love with it and you love it. And then you find out after the fact, 100% AI generated. Like they just scanned it and they let it cook for a year and it spit this thing out and you loved it. Do you retroactively stop liking it and never want to touch it again? Or does it make you come around?
I think I will feel a lot of disappointment, but I will not, if I love it that much, I will not love it. I will probably still return to it if I loved it that much, but I will have a disappointment knowing that it was put together by a machine. But then I will still condemn the machine that put it out. But I'll be open about having been tricked.
We'll get you there. We'll trick you pretty quickly. And I'm because I guess
Are
I've
you
got
AI? Are you AI?
I am. I've got like a potential theory, or at least I think this is where it'll head. And I'm just curious if this is like for the better or for the worse, assuming that AI doesn't go away. Like AI isn't the genie that goes back in the bottle, right? So in the distant future, you're not buying a Kanye West album or a Kanye West single. You're buying Kanye West went into to the booth and just recorded like 40 hours of him rapping all of his favorite lyrics and lines and everything, and just fed that into a machine. And now when you go to Walmart, you just download the latest Kanye West updates. So now every song, you're listening to old Johnny Cash song and you're like, I want to hear Kanye in this song. And you just add him in like it's a freaking spice in your spice cabinet. The same way that maybe if you get like the Chef Boyardee, right? Like the Chef Boyardee didn't cook that can himself, but it was based on his master crafted recipes of how to make lasagna in a can, right? So like you're buying a thing endorsed by, somewhat crafted on, and expand that to every artist, every musician, every actor, every director. Is that a future that you want to live in, or is that like a horrible way of going about it?
I totally reject that future. I'm sure we'll get there. I don't personally like the ease with which a lot of people think they can digest their entertainment. I like knowing that like a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and skepticism and turmoil went into someone making something, hopefully, so having this like buffet of art available to me to then mismatch into whatever dream scenario I want seems totally bogus and counterproductive to like experiencing something someone made for you to experience, to have your own experience instead of like, making a Mr. Potato Head out of art. I think that's ridiculous.
You'll come around, my friend. And if you don't, we'll just send the drones after you. And also, is you rejecting this just part of your Illuminati like programming?
Maybe. Are you into it? Like, do you like that idea of like getting to mix match things?
I see it like early 90s sampling when they wanted to sue Biz Markie for sampling a trombone or a trumpet. How dare you? You weren't there. You didn't record that. You don't have any license for that. And then it's like, I don't care. I made it into a cool song and I like the cool song and all my friends like the cool song.
Right. But that's still, in my mind, people taking things and repurposing instead of like pressing a button and then just having it run whatever wish you want granted. Right?
Maybe, but I mean, if we're continuing the sampling analogy here, it would also be like loading up, your MPC and just hitting play on like the default 120 BPM click track and being like, I did that, I made music. Like you could still sit down and sample from a bunch of artists and spend time on that. The same way I think you could take like let's break this down a little bit, and I'll let you go because we're running on time. Yeah, but let's imagine that like Kanye or KRS or I don't know, like your favorite producer, DJ Premier. I wouldn't say that he would do this. Shout out Premier. But that like they sit down and they just make a sample library just based on AI and then take those AI generated samples and load that into the MPC and chop it up and cut it and add. Like, does that get a pass? And if so, at what point does it get a pass? What if they just AI generate the whole song and then add drums to it? Or what if they make, you know what I mean?
Yeah, that's the thing that's so weird thinking about where those lines will be.
The ship of Theseus a little bit.
There will be people who just, and I'm sure it's happening right now, just tell the AI, extract that sample, put it up to this tempo, change the tuning to, put it in this chord or whatever. And then people say, well, they did it. That's art. And then I think about, you're talking about people doing something like that. And then there's also producers who were fairly lazy with sampling, let's say, extract something, put it there. That's like with the AI just asking to do the same thing. And then there's someone like Kanye who turned sampling into a whole other art form. There's other ones, but since we're talking about him, he was known for doing this different thing, the samplings with the pitched up tempos early on in the early 2000s, which then people who with AI might find some new way to do the not lazy thing with AI that I don't even understand yet. And maybe there's something there that will be interesting. I don't perceive it yet. I cannot perceive it with where I'm at. I am getting more and more interested in going back, not to being a Luddite like the Luddites were, but into, I want real tactile things.
I just imagine you slapping cell phones out of people's hands just left and right when you see them. Like a straight edger watching people smoke cigarettes.
No, because it's like, I still like a lot of things that are modern, and I love the things they do for us. But I just think a lot of stuff is, we're defaulting to it, where we hopefully should have more of like a coexistence. But that's where AI and everything's going, is where we're defaulting to this stuff to do the larger job, to make the art, to make the email. And just me personally, that's not the world I want to be in, and I will probably, I will not flourish in that world. I'm not flourishing in this world, because there's people doing things that are getting, a lot of attention with AI art or whatever, that I just like, I never want to do it. There's AI books, AI poems, AI art that I personally would not feel good putting out into the world. And I'm not going to tell anyone to stop doing it, because I think they can express themselves that way, and that's fine. I just reject it.
And I find there's just an interesting discussion here. We could go on forever, but because I see a contradiction, but also like a complete relation between it's been called like the democratization of whatever, writing, art, music for using the AI. But some of the earliest legal and sort of like cultural explanations for sampling in hip hop, when it came under the same sort of explanation, was that like, I don't have the budget to hire a 20-piece big band, and I don't have the budget to do anything. What I do have the budget is take a record that I've got that my parents had and record that and chop it up and replay it. And I didn't give anyone credit, and I didn't pay anyone, and I didn't clear any of my samples, but this is all that I had kind of to my devices. And I think that argument will be strong, like used kind of like a very similar way that sampling was.
For sure. I think at a certain point, you have to realize when progress is too much, and is it progress at all costs? And when do we know when to stop? It's the same conversation you might have with a Neuralink. Like, there's certain temporary, short-term benefits, but there's long-term consequences that I think outweigh those short-term benefits. And that's an unfortunate thing to think about. And I also think with both AI, art, or the Neuralink, those things will eventually progress humanity out of existence, to where like getting your samples, digging through crates, or finding songs to work with, or putting a band together, or building a guitar or whatever, maybe making drums out of, I remember we had drums built out of 5-gallon buckets. The AI at a certain point will take away the ingenuity and then just replace people. And then there's no need for people. But I'm sure also that at some point there will be someone who learns how to use AI to some new way that I can't think about, that people will think is interesting, that, might be that thing that tricks me down the road. And I'm like, wow, they did it. It's interesting. But I will still feel that disappointment that there wasn't that human ingenuity or urgency to it. Although people will be like, well, they were ingenuity because they found out a way to work AI in a way that's never been used before. Fair enough. But it just isn't for me. And I, as an artist, I will not want to operate that way. And that will maybe make me die off quicker than others, because I'm not going to adapt to that, because that's just, to me, it seems like no fun, honestly. I've seen AI like poems, those are things that are like, oh wow, okay, that could be that might be the first thing that tricked me, because I also like poems written by those weird beat poets in the 60s, and the things they wrote are very similar to a lot of the AI poems now,
like Jack Kerouac and like
right, because it's like, oh, put in
Allen Ginsberg,
put in nonsensical words, E.E. Cummings, and then spit it back out. So that might be the first thing that will get me, honestly. So that's for you. That's for your ammo. send me some AI poems, and we'll see if I can pick.
I don't need the ammo. The ammo is going to come from the T-1000s or whatever. They're going to come and just like send the spike through your forehead. They've advanced beyond bullets.
See, I think that was Hollywood propaganda to make us think that the robots are going to like descend upon us like that. I think the robots are going to come from within. Like it's a smaller invasion.
Literally, they're going to be nanobots inside of us that are supposed to be inspecting your colon, and all of a sudden you're like voting for Biden and you don't know why.
Right. All of a sudden you're the robot. You didn't even see it coming. Like, you're T-1000. Like, fuck, sucks.
All right, I want to be respectful of your time. We could keep going on this, but
I know, dude, this is fun.
Shout some things anywhere you want people to go. If there's like a better book that you want them, if there's a book to tell them like not to read because you don't like it.
You want
to start any beef? I would love it if you started like a new beef right now, like called someone out that's been on your mind.
Nah, no beefs. I'm proud of all my books. I love them all. The one I put out just a year ago is the one about Jefferson Davis. That's a second Inverted World book. Those are you can find online. You can go to ShaneCashman.com. You can find the fucking lunatic there. You can find Joyless Kingdom there. On Twitter, I'm at Shane Cashman. You could find what I'm going to start serializing with this Kanye West story. Through Timcast, I have another book coming out that will be out, I think, early May. That one's called The Year of the Pariah. And that kind of details some of the stories we were talking about today with Alex Jones or Carrie Lake or Kanye. And then on top of that, I will have hopefully soon my weekly live show up and running, which is through Timcast, called the Inverted World Series. And you should be a guest on that because you'd be fun on that show. So when that's up and running, yeah, we'll have to have you. We'll get weird for sure.
I'll drop some real Illuminati knowledge on you.
Good. Yeah. Let's fucking do it, dude. I'm ready.
All right. Well, thanks again for coming on. This has been a really interesting one. And I'm going to play us out with some AI music. So I know now I told you already know, but I'm interested to see if you would have known and how quickly you would have known. All right. I'll see you guys.
chosenone.com. Go visit chosenone.com. It's easy to remember if you just sing along. chosenone.com. Go visit chosenone.com. The chosen one. Yes, he is the chosen one. He's got his own comic, and now he's got his own song. 'Cause he's the chosen one. Yes, he is the chosen one. Go buy a copy at chosenone.com. chosenone.com. Go visit chosenone.com. It's easy to remember if you just sing along. chosenone.com. Go visit chosenone.com.
Paranoid. Yo. I scribble my life away, driven to write the page. Will it enlighten your brain, give you the flight? My plane paper, the highs ablaze. Somewhat of an amazing feel when it's real to real. You will engage it. Your favorite, of course, the Lord of an arrangement. I gave you the proper results to hit the pavement. If they get emotional, hey, maybe your language, a game, how they playing it well without Lakers. Evade them, whatever the cost, they are the shapeshift. Snakes get decapitated, met is the apex. Execution of flame you out, nuclear bomb distributed at war, rather gruesome for eyes to see. Max them out, then I light my trees. Blow it off in the face, you're despising me for what though? Calculated and rather cutthroat. Paranoid American must be all the blunt smoke for real. Lord, give me a day away, vacate. They wait around to hate whatever they say. Matters not in the least bit. We get heavy rotate when a beat hits, so thank us, you're welcome. Fuck the niggas for real, you're welcome. They ain't never had a deal, you're welcome. Man, they lacking appeal, you're welcome. Yet they doing it still, you're welcome.